goodness. That was a bad one, sorry. The babies are ready to come out too, look at them. That little boy is really hoppy. There you go. Is one of the star producers of the farm. So she only gave birth to her babies 4 days ago, and I am having to come in behind her kids nursing and relieve some of the pressure on her udder. Her babies are tiny, teeny tiny little Nigerian babies, and there's no way that they can keep up with the capacity that Margie is capable of. So once a day I put Margie on the stand and relieve some of the pressure, and this helps keep her supply up as well for the future when her babies will be drinking much more. They're just really small for that yet. So Margot here is not a Nigerian. She was a rescue goat that my friend rescued several years ago, and we think that she's some kind of mini Alpine, mini Oberhasli or Hashley, however you say the breed name. But she has some kind of high capacity volume genetics in her background, and after doing a little bit of research, I think maybe she's mini Alpine. One of the reasons I think that is that Alpines are really known for not just their milk capacity, but for the ability to sustain a nice lactation over a long period of time. Right around 8 weeks, some does will continue a nice steady production for a long time. Other does may start to wane in their production as their kids wean. Margie puts a very consistent amount, a very large for her size, consistent amount of milk in the pail for a very long time, which is really great, especially right now, because I'm actually holding Margie and a couple other does off until next spring before I breed them again. Margot is polyestrous, so she will go into heats year round, and I have a lot of high capacity dairy does now that don't do that. They only will go into heats in the fall time, and so they'll have their kids in the spring. So I'd like to shift some of my polyestrous high capacity does into spring breeding and fall kidding so that I can have a higher milk volume over the winter. And Shveni, believe it or not, my white dairy goat with the long ears, she is also polyestrous. So Margie and Shveni, in the very least, are not going to be bred until next spring, so that fall 2024 I can have more milk over the winter. Husky, don't touch, don't touch, don't touch. Looks like the babies don't want to come out from under the heat lamp just yet, so we'll be back a little bit later to watch them bounce around. I find that once the mamas go out to the pond to graze and the barn is empty, that's when they really like to run around. Hi, boys. Hello. So I don't know if he flashed you there, but Farrell is dealing with a little bit of scouring, which can happen, and scouring means diarrhea. So because I have my microscope, I did go ahead and look at the scouring poop, and I think what he's dealing with is a little bit of coccidia, which can be scary, but also is pretty normal. So he's a bottle baby, and we don't put any coccidia preventions in our bottle. A lot of people do. A lot of people do it on a schedule. I find that coccidia hasn't been a huge deal here yet, and I do have a medicine that I give them if they happen to crop up with coccidia and seem to be suffering with it. So truth be told, goats develop a resistance or almost an immunity to coccidia just over time anyway. A lot of adult goats have coccidia immunity, and so I have started giving him full bottles of goat's milk for my girls because I believe there's probably some good things in this milk that's going to help his coccidia bloom. And I did also treat him with Baycox. I think the generic name is Totrazil, and that's a really great thing to have on hand. It's a 1-dose treatment, and he's been acting completely normally. So I'm watching him closely. I don't want him to start acting sleepy or lethargic or anything like that, but so far he's acting quite normally, and I need to stand around here in a little bit to see if his poops are starting to become more solid. I'm betting that they are, though. He is keeping really good condition. Huh. Handsome. All gone? All gone, all gone, all gone? All gone? Oh, there's a little bit in there. You get every last drop. Okay, now it's gone. Now it's gone. Come here. Oh. See him here? It's kind of yucky. So since I'm still new and relatively unfamiliar with this type of electric netting, every time I open it during the day, I am testing the voltage to make sure it's not grounding out. It is grounding out a little bit on the lower strand, but that hasn't really been a problem for these big boys. They're testing it much higher up. See, the bottom strand is only at 1,000 volts, but as we go up, we're getting more and more voltage. See, that's very, very hot, 12,000 volts. Not exactly sure how they finagled the wires on these things, but it looks like every other strand is just over 5,000 volts, which is perfect. And then the other strands are actually much harder at 12,000 volts. So these guys are good for today. They've only had this access to this area for about 4 days. It does look like they've eaten down the grass quite a lot. I am going to be moving the fence in a little while, and I have ordered another little bit of fencing, another 100-foot section of the Permanent Pro. And I also need, there's some stakes that can go in any corners that you make out of the fence, or any like sharp bends, in order to get it to not sort of lean inward. I need to get some of those too. So far, the slight lean inward hasn't really been a big issue, but I don't want it to ever be an issue. Especially with the high winds that we get, high wind impact. I just want to be safe. Be smart. All right, so it's been a couple hours. Oh, I had some family stop by. I'm trying to race the rain, but I don't know if we're gonna make it. So I bought these blueberry plants from Stark Brothers a little while ago. These are the misty blueberries, and they're starting to bud up or get their leaves. And we had some powder blue blueberry plants planted along our ditch here in between our property and the neighbor's property, but during that really bad drought that we had last year, and then that cold snap, the super cold one that I've been talking about every video now since December, that really did them in. And so there's 9 blueberry plants here that died, and I'm going to be replacing them with these. I do have one living blueberry plant that did make it through all of that, and I'm super excited. This is actually a pink lemonade blueberry, and so if any of them were going to live, I would have hoped that it was this one. It's definitely alive. So just because something looks dead doesn't mean that it is dead. And I wanted to show you how I know that these plants are dead. So you wouldn't do this on a plant that you're really hoping is alive, but you can tell pretty easily when something is dead. It just they just snap. But a good trick to tell, and you don't have to break off any branches, is to take your thumbnail and scratch away at the bark of the plant. And when you are able to get away the outside cuticle of the plant to the inside, you should see some green if the plant is alive. There's nothing happening here but brown, dead, and dry. So I know this plant is dead. Okay, so I barely beat the rain in getting these plants in the ground. I'm glad that I was able to do that because we're gonna have some rain for the next couple days off and on, and that's gonna help water these guys in really well. So I'm not any kind of berry expert by any means, but I do know a little bit about blueberries, and I know that there are many different varieties of blueberries, and some of them that can grow really well in northern climates are not going to do very well in southern climates. It really matters how many freeze hours you have. And so when selecting blueberry plants for your homestead, you really need to look at what blueberries are going to work, what blueberries need a minimal amount of freeze hours for your area. This winter was really benign. I don't know how many freeze hours we really had, but it wasn't many. And so these guys are hardy from zone 5 to 10, so really warm weather. These are grown in California. And honestly, these are probably not going to be my most favorite blueberry. I grew up in Maine, and that's blueberry country, and the kinds of blueberries that grow in Maine need massive amounts of freeze hours. I can't grow that variety here, but these guys are going to be delicious despite not being what I grew up with, and we'll get to harvest from them in about 2 to 3 years. Really, their first year, they're gonna spend a lot of time establishing their root system. And once their root systems are established well, this ditch system is gonna be really nice. It's gonna be able to water them really well. And they're gonna get really big. So you probably noticed, I think these guys are planted about every 6 feet apart. And that's a good thing because they get really wide and really tall, but this is gonna allow them a lot of room to grow and a lot of room to produce. So I had purchased 75 strawberry crowns from Stark Brothers. These are Ozark Beauty strawberry crowns. And if you've never seen 25 strawberry crowns in a bundle before, now you have. I have grown strawberries from seed before, and it's actually pretty easy to do. But buying them this way gives you a little bit of a jump on the season, a little bit of a jump on the harvest. Strawberries produce really well in subsequent years. So their first season you can get fruit, but you're more guaranteed to get a higher yield of fruit in subsequent years for about 4 years for the average strawberry crown. And so buying them this way allows us to skip that first year where they're really developing this root system and being able to benefit from more fruit sooner. So what we're gonna do today is plant 30 or maybe 29 strawberry plants in the green stock here today. I had this entire green stock full of strawberries last year, but as I mentioned earlier, the major freeze that we had in December, it killed everything in the greenhouse, all but one little strawberry plant up there that's hanging on. So we're gonna leave that little guy in there. All I'm gonna do to amend this green stock is take several handfuls of soil and add it straight to the top of the soil that's already in there. So when you buy a green stock, they do come disassembled, and honestly they're kind of a pain to assemble and align in just the right way and get everything to connect up perfectly. You could tear the thing apart and amend each pot individually and then stack them back up, but I'm gonna elect not to do that because I fought with this thing for a long time to get it situated and get it the way that it is, and I don't feel like doing that again. So we're gonna do it this way. Now that I'm properly messy, I'm ready to plant some of these crowns. So what we are going to do is separate them out from the bundle, and this is what we're working with. So we've got the roots down here, and this little top part is the crown. And I'd like for this crown to stay above soil level. One of the issues that you can have with strawberries is called crown rot, and it's when the crown just gets too moist and this little center part dies, and we want to avoid that. So one way that you can avoid that when you're planting in ground is to plant them in hills, or just to make sure not to put this crown below the soil level. So I'm just gonna make a hole deep enough for these roots and stick them on in. Alrighty, so all the crowns are planted, and unlike the blueberries and everything else that's outside the greenhouse, this doesn't get to benefit from the rain, so I have to make sure that I water these guys in. I didn't have much growing in here in the last few months since the original strawberry crowns died, but I did make sure that I was still watering this thing. When you've got plants in the soil, the plants are not the only thing that's living. There's a lot of really great living microorganisms and funguses and things inside the soil that also need water to survive. So I've been watering this thing all winter long just for this moment for plants to go in it, and now it's time to actually water the plants in. I just dumped my watering can in the top twice. One watering can doesn't quite water the whole thing. What we're looking for is for water to start pouring out of the bottom tier. Over here is where the strawberries live in the raised bed garden, and these guys did really great through that hard freeze. My guess is that because the sidewalls of the green stalk and the soil only really are able to insulate the roots about this far, that the cold can really easily get to those roots that really should be protected over winter. And there's obviously a lot more soil surrounding the roots in the raised bed, and I think that's why these guys survived while the ones in the greenhouse didn't. So I've got 2 extra little strawberry crowns here. I'm just gonna stick them over here because it makes sense. And there's actually a lot more strawberries here this year than I planted last year. And that's to be expected because strawberries, you can grow them from seed and they can reproduce by seed, but more often they like to produce or reproduce with runners. So when the plants really get growing in the springtime, you'll see a little mini baby strawberry plant shooting out the side of a parent strawberry plant. And eventually, if you watch that plant as time goes on, you'll see the little strawberry runner, that baby plant, put down its own roots into the soil and create a brand new plant. I really love that about strawberries. So you don't have to buy strawberry crowns every year. You don't have to plant strawberry seeds every year. I really only just do so to replace the ones that were lost. I really need to come back through here and clean this bed up and remulch everything, but I'm gonna worry about that in a couple weeks. Right now, we're gonna go see what those baby goats are doing. Calamity. Really? I'm coming. Back up. Back up. Hello. This little guy is one of our meat goats, and he's really taken a liking to me. So I try not to get super close to the goats that I know we're going to just end up putting in the freezer, but it is kind of nice to get them used to me so they're not super hard to catch, because I still take care of these guys. I still make sure they have their copper. I still trim their feet. I still make sure that they are healthy, and I want them to be easy to catch on butchering day. I don't want them to be stressed out at all. But you're not supposed to be this friendly. No. Oh well. Yeah. At this point, I really hope our girl Christine over here in the corner chewing her cud, I hope she gives me a Swiss doe. I plan on keeping every single doe that comes out of Christine. These are going to be purebred La Manchas, registerable La Manchas. They are going to be grade level La Manchas. And Christine gave us a beauty last year. She gave us Elpis, and I could use a little bit more Elpis in my life. This is pesky. Oh, thank you. Rumen burps are the worst. I hate them. So if you guys didn't catch it, we did name this little girl Tallulah. And we aren't sure if we're gonna have to keep this little guy back for a meat goat. We kind of have to see what our La Manchas have. And little Holly's back here hiding. This year we're hoping to raise 5 to 6 meat goats, and if our La Manchas are full of girls, we're not gonna be butchering the girls. We're gonna be keeping the girls back for dairy. And so I kind of need to hang on to him and stay a little bit less attached to him until I know I have our meat goat quota filled, because he might have to be part of that. Do you have a moon spot on your udder? Boba,
What is that? Huh? How cute!